There is little more haunting than watching somebody's final moments on surveillance footage before they disappear indefinitely. Although having such information on camera should provide us with answers, it often leaves us confused and questioning. Join us for today's episode as we examine 3 cases of eerie footage linked to missing persons. Kristen Brueggman. At the time of her disappearance, 26-year-old Kristen Brueggman was living with her parents on the northeast side of Indianapolis, Indiana, and worked at a Cici's Pizza restaurant. Typically, after her shift, Kristen's mother picked her up, but on the evening of January 1st, 2021, she told her parents that she wouldn't need a ride because she was going out with friends after work. According to her parents, Rex and Lisa, Kristen did not contact them again. Her mother tried to reach her at around 12:30 a.m., but the call went straight to voicemail, indicating that the phone had been turned off or lost power. That night, Kristen had spent time at a pub named Manly's Irish Mutt on 10th Street with her ex-boyfriend Eddie Bradford and his friends Jared, Olivia, and Robin. According to Kristen's parents, as well as most news reports, the 26-year-old got into a fight with the group and they left the bar, but she stayed behind. Robin later stated, "It eats at my conscience because we were right there before whatever happened. If only we wouldn't have left her there." However, a report by the private investigator hired by Kristen's parents stated that the entire group, Kristen included, left the bar at around 12:15 a.m., with the 26-year-old telling her friends that she wanted to go bowling. She was last seen by them walking in the direction of the nearest bowling alley. The next and last time Kristen was seen was on CCTV in the parking lot of the YMCA on Shortridge Road, Indianapolis, at around 2 a.m. on the morning of January 2nd. After this, there is no more surveillance footage of her as the faulty camera cut out. When it came back on, there was no sign of Kristen. Police spotted a dark SUV parked near the fence line of the YMCA and a nearby apartment complex, which they stated was an area of interest, and at 12:37 a.m., the vehicle was seen driving away. The car has never been identified, however, and it's unclear if it is connected to Kristen's disappearance. Investigators suspect that the 26-year-old hopped the fence to the apartment complex and was possibly harmed or taken from that point. Her mother, Lisa, recalled that she knew something was amiss that night. "Call it a mother's intuition, but I felt like something bad had really happened. I woke up at about 12:30, about the same time her phone went off, and that's when I first tried to call her, and her phone was off." Meanwhile, Kristen's father, Rex, has stated, "Our life ground to a halt." He stated that his daughter was fun-loving and gentle, with a soft spot for animals. They don't believe that Kristen simply walked away from her life because she left behind her dog, Tifa. After Kristen was reported missing, Indianapolis police conducted searches, followed leads, and offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to the 26-year-old's whereabouts. Lisa commented, "I do believe that somebody knows something." Less than a year after Kristen vanished, her parents hired a private investigator to help supplement the investigation. They have stated that though they have faith in the city police, they feel a private investigator has more time to focus on their daughter's case. In September 2021, they held a vigil to raise awareness of Kristen's disappearance, which was attended by about 40 people. Family and friends helped hand out flyers with Kristen's photo and information. There are few theories in Kristen's case, and even fewer leads. Though family and investigators have not stated what they think happened to the 26-year-old, armchair sleuths have suggested she left town to avoid further trouble with the law, or that something more sinister happened to her involving drugs. These theories emerged because public court records show that Kristen has had several brushes with the law between 2012 and 2020, including criminal recklessness, possession of marijuana and drug paraphernalia, public intoxication, and assault. She was most recently due to appear in court on January 13th. Despite the efforts of everyone involved, Kristen is still missing. She is described as a white woman with brown hair and brown eyes. She is 5'2" and weighed around 115 pounds when she was last seen. At the time of her disappearance, she was wearing a black coat, blue jeans, a grey hat, and a white backpack. Anyone with information about her disappearance can call the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police at 317-327-6160. Caitlin Potts. The last time anyone heard from 27-year-old Caitlin Potts was on the morning of February 22nd, 2016. That day, she messaged her sister, Cody, explaining that she was traveling to Calgary from her current location in British Columbia using a ride she had organized through a Classfield site named Kijiji. However, a few days passed and no one heard anything further from Caitlin. Concerned for her safety, her family filed a missing persons report on March 1st. Caitlin's life had been nothing short of turbulent. A member of the Sampson Cree First Nation in Alberta, Canada, she spent much of her youth living in foster care, though her mother, Priscilla, fought desperately to have her 4 children returned to her throughout the years. Priscilla visited the siblings regularly, taking them on trips to the lake and joining them for family dinners. Despite this challenging upbringing, that her mother says left her with attachment issues, Caitlin was described by loved ones as bubbly and outgoing. She kept in regular contact with her family, enjoyed dinners with them, and often attended church alongside them. Caitlin was also a devoted mother to her young son, whom she is said to have talked about non-stop. Adding to the struggles in Caitlin's life was the fact that she had a tumultuous relationship with her on-again, off-again boyfriend, 41-year-old Jason Hanatuik, who had been abusive towards her on numerous occasions. Caitlin would sometimes visit her siblings while covered in bruises and crying. Her sister Cody recalled, "One time she called me crying, and she was hiding in the bathroom, saying he was outside and he was going to kick the door in." Later that day, Jason was arrested, and the mother of one went to stay at a woman's shelter, where she enrolled in school again and got a job working at Tim Hortons. At the time of her disappearance, she had left the shelter and was living with a roommate she'd met while there. She was also back on good terms with Jason. Caitlin was not added to the RCMP's missing persons list until late March. 3 months later, in June 2016, Priscilla decided to reach out to Indigenous groups in British Columbia for help in orchestrating their own search for the 27-year-old. They subsequently combed through areas of Enderby, where a witness believes they saw Caitlin, as well as Mabel Lake, Grindrod, and parts of the Shuswap River, where the police have stated she was last seen. Volunteers also helped canvass the local neighborhoods to see if anyone had seen anything suspicious, but nothing came of the family's efforts. In April 2017, the RCMP released CCTV footage of Caitlin entering the Orchard Palace Mall in Kelowna, British Columbia, at around 1:30 on the afternoon of February 21st, 2016. The surveillance footage shows the 27-year-old wearing a black jacket, light-coloured trousers, and black winter boots, while carrying her mobile phone and a brown leather handbag. Investigators decided to release the footage in order to jog people's memories. They may have seen Caitlin that day and not even realised who she was. Around this same time, they stated that they suspect foul play, and they don't believe Caitlin left the region before she went missing, as they have no evidence to show that she actually travelled to Calgary. In May 2017, Jason stood trial following an assault against Caitlin, which had taken place at a hotel in Edmonton in 2014, 2 years before she went missing. He was convicted of assault with a weapon and breaching a condition of recognizance, while 2 other charges against him were dropped. In 2023, Jason spoke with Global News, where he claimed that though he was a friend of Caitlin's, he was not her boyfriend. He stated that when he met her, he had just broken up with the mother of his children. "I was feeling really lost in life. I was lonely," he said. He also mentioned that Caitlin sometimes worked as an escort at the time of her disappearance. As for the assault charge, he claimed that Caitlin was at the hotel on her own and that she'd called him up and asked him for help because some men had stolen her handbag. According to Jason, the hotel is a crime hotspot and Caitlin was in debt to some drug dealers. When he arrived on the hotel, quote, "She flipped it on me and told me if I didn't pay the money to these guys, she was going to have me beaten up. So that's what led to the altercation between her and I." Following Caitlin's disappearance, Jason recalled that the police called him and asked him where she was. He ultimately invited investigators to search his residence as he didn't want people to say that I was trying to cover anything up. They searched the property with cadaver dogs, forensics, drones, and helicopters, and ripped out the interior of his vehicle, but found nothing of note. Over the years, the RCMP has stated that they've investigated 25 tips and pursued hundreds of leads, but Caitlin remains missing. In 2021, Caitlin's family were raising funds to hire a private investigator. For some time, locals speculated that a serial killer was on the loose, as Caitlin was just one of 3 Indigenous women to go missing in the Okanagan region in 2016. 46-year-old Deanna Ruesch was last seen on the morning of July 19, 2016, at her home on Yankee Flats Road in Salmon Arm, British Columbia. Meanwhile, Ashley Simpson was 32 when she vanished from a property near Salmon Arm in 2016. Last year, however, Ashley's boyfriend pled guilty to her murder. Her body has been found in 2021. Caitlin Potts was 27 when she vanished from Enderby, British Columbia, on February 22, 2016. She is described as an Indigenous woman with brown eyes and long black hair with blonde streaks. She is 5'3" and weighed around 150 pounds when she was last seen. She has connections to the areas of Kelowna, Salmon Arm, and Enderby, all of which are in British Columbia. If you have any information about Caitlin's disappearance, you can call the RCMP Southeast District Major Crime Unit tip line at 877-987-8477. Damien Nettles. At around 7:30 on the night of November 2nd, 1996, 16-year-old Damien Nettles and his friend Chris Boone attended a party in East Cowes on the Isle of Wight before deciding to leave. Reportedly, the party was a low-key affair attended by 3 couples, with Damien being the only one on his own. And while Chris stated that his best friend wanted to leave because he was bored, Damien's brother later suspected that he wanted to purchase marijuana that night. The two left the party at around 9:30 p.m., returning to West Cowes via ferry and stopping to buy cider on the way. According to a 2007 police report, between 9:30 p.m. and 12:06 a.m. that night, Damien attempted to gain entry to some of the local pubs, but was denied. Since Damien was 6'4", he often had no trouble getting bouncers to believe he was old enough to drink. His friend Chris wasn't so lucky, however. He was often left to wait outside. Chris remembered that night, Damien was looking for his older sister, Sarah. A secondary witness statement backed up these claims. His mother, Valerie, though, noted that Damien knew Sarah was in Portsmouth, so why was he looking for her in the pubs? She suggested he was using her as an excuse to get into the pubs that night. At 10 p.m., Damien was captured on CCTV inside a chip shop named Yorkie's on the High Street. However, he and Chris left without buying anything. Half an hour later, Chris complained of being cold and wet and decided to call it a night. The pair walked to Northwood Park together before parting ways. Chris stated, "I went straight home. I was 100% sure that Damien had headed up through the park towards home." But Damien wasn't ready to leave yet, so he returned to the high street and was seen on CCTV inside Yorkie's chip shop again, where witnesses recalled that he seemed very drunk or appeared spaced out. He ordered a bag of chips when prompted by the employee, paid, and then left. Another witness recalled seeing the 16-year-old at around 11:15 p.m., when Damien was attempting to open the doors of a blue Ford Fiesta in the Harbour Lights pub car park. Valerie stated that she was surprised when she heard Damien was doing this because it was completely out of character. Shortly afterwards, he was seen at a bus stop near a Co-op supermarket. When he boarded the bus that arrived, he spoke with the driver and attempted to take his photograph with the black camera he was carrying before exiting again, thanking the driver on his way out. Just minutes later, a third witness claimed that someone matching Damien's description was hanging out by the bus stop eating chips. The witness, who was waiting to pick up their child who was on a different bus, stated that the teenage boy then got up, approached them, and stated twice, quote, "They are watching us." The boy then cleaned the rain off the witness's car window before walking towards the high street. The witness stated that the boy looked heavily drugged and seemed to bank heavily into the car. Damien was seen on CCTV walking on the high street, but was never seen again. There were two routes that would take him home. The first was through the park, where he had parted ways with Chris, while the other was a coastal path along the seafront. Valerie stated that it was unlikely he'd have taken the second option. Quote, "It was a nasty night, and dark and unfriendly along the seafront. That walk would not have appealed to him." Damien's parents reported him missing at 3 p.m. on November 3rd, having spent the morning calling their son's friends and checking to see if he was at anyone's house. His little sister, Melissa, who was just 9 at the time, was the first to notice that he hadn't come home that night. He was nowhere to be seen, and his bed was untouched. From the get-go, the Nettles family were displeased with the police investigation into their son's disappearance. In the days after Damien went missing, the family went door-to-door with friends and relatives, canvassing the local area and appealing for help. Furthermore, a friend of Valerie's was the one who discovered CCTV of Damien at the chip shop. Valerie's friend, Coran Lawrence, had a son of the same age as Damien, and stated, "The police wouldn't do anything, so I took it upon myself to walk down the street, asking left and right to see if anyone had seen him. The man in the chip shop just told me he had this little camera above the door, and that I was welcome to have a look." Those who have seen the CCTV, which shows Damien the second time he visited the chip shop, often agree that Damien seems out of it. He seems to have trouble communicating, but eventually orders a big bag of chips, pays, and leaves. 5 other young men were seen on CCTV, talking with Damien, though everything seemed friendly. But Damien's family noted that the men weren't interviewed and ruled out until years after he went missing, criticizing the police for not speaking with people who could have been important witnesses much sooner. Coran stated that investigators had tunnel vision while looking into the disappearance, noting, "The whole time, the police insisted that he must have gone into the water, but I never believed that. The police were awful. At one stage they called Valerie and I hysterical women." Once again, it was the family, not the police, who caught wind of further potential CCTV footage of Damien on the night of his disappearance. They let the police know, who obtained and examined the video before showing it to Valerie. But she immediately knew that the man they thought was Damien was not her son. Looking at the footage further though, she was able to pick out the 16-year-old walking along the high street eating chips just after midnight. She recalled, "It was the last time I ever saw my son alive." In a massive blunder, though, investigators lost the footage. In 2005, Valerie complained to the Independent Police Complaints Commission, criticizing the loss and the way that her son's case had been handled. She was told that the officer who had lost the tape had been dealt with already. The Nettles family also reached out to the harbour master at the time, Captain Henry Wrigley, who helped to calculate where Damon's body would likely wash up if he'd fallen into the water that night. But weeks passed and there was no sign of the teenager. Wrigley also assisted in a water search for Damien's body, but still, nothing was found. Damien would have been unable to leave the island, as ferries had already stopped for the night when he was last seen on CCTV. Even if they hadn't, his family had no indications that he wished to go to the mainland. His ex-girlfriend, Abby Scott, who had dated Damien for 18 months until the summer of 1996, stated that towards the end of their relationship, he had become a little different. She stated, "I saw flickers of someone else. He was hanging around with a different group of people who were a little bit older than him. There were obviously some things he was keeping to himself. It could have been drugs. I don't know." His girlfriend at the time of his disappearance, Gemma Nunn, told the BBC that the police had never asked her about drugs or trouble Damien might have been in, or even suggested that something sinister had happened to him. Though an incident room was set up immediately after Damien went missing, none of the evidence from that time was kept by police, including call logs, police notebooks, and records of the on-duty staff around that time. This was another criticism the Nettles family had of the original police investigation. In 2010, an associate of drug dealer Nicky McNamara told Damien's family that the 16-year-old had been killed by McNamara following an argument over marijuana. Apparently, the drug dealer had hit Damien, but had not intended to kill him. His body was subsequently dumped in a drug den in the city for 3 weeks until it was buried inside a sailbag near a cycle path on the island. The associate stated they'd told the police this in 2002, but nothing had ever come of it. After hearing the story, Valerie went to the police, who subsequently arrested multiple men who had links to the 1996 drugs scene and McNamara. The men were aged between 37 and 50. Investigators also examined marshland along a cycle path between Cowes and Newport, but eventually told Valerie that the informant was unreliable. He had previously told them that the body was buried in an area of Gurnard. Over the decades, there have been various stories and rumours about what happened to Damien. One version of events is that he attempted to protect a friend who was being abused. Another is that he was a victim of a sex attack. Many of the rumours, though, tie back to McNamara. Most state that the drug dealer had beaten Damien and accidentally killed him, though the reason why Damien was the subject of such an angry outburst differs depending on who is asked. McNamara died in 2002, so he can't be questioned. His death is likely the reason why the informant finally came forward that year. Damien Nettles is still missing. He was 16 when he vanished from Cowes on the Isle of Wight on November 2nd, 1996. He was last seen wearing blue jeans and a black fleece, and was carrying a black camera at the time, which has never been recovered. If you have any information about Damien's disappearance, you can contact Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.